Good morning. For those who don't know, I'm Iris's brother, her wee brother. We're here today to celebrate Iris's life, not her death. Death is never a pleasing thing, but her life is worth celebrating and remembering. So what can I say about Iris? I knew her all my life, which is quite silly saying that, but it's true. I was her brother, she was my sister. We've known each other all that time. But to me, Iris was always my big sister. Being 11 years older than I am, she was just like a second mother to me in many ways, and she looked after me when I was doing things I shouldn't be doing and made sure that I was okay in whatever or wherever I was, even when I became a man and older and a 60-year-old plus person that I am today. She was always making sure I was doing the right thing or taking care of me. But most of you here today will only have known Iris since she came to this area of Clearwater and attended this corps. But there's more to Iris than these latter years of her life, and so I want to try and give you a bit more history to Iris's life. It's nice to see John and Cindy South here, because John and Cindy have known Iris for a long time, particularly John from our days in Scotland and Cindy from the California time, so it's lovely to see you here. But before I go any further, I think it's important to give you some history. Despite Henry Ford's thoughts that history is bunk, it is good to learn about Iris's history, so here goes. Iris was born in 1941 in Glasgow, Scotland, and was the firstborn child to my father and mother, James and Jean Boyd. They had two other children, my sister Sylvia, and then I came along to complete the family. The five of us lived in Glasgow, and we were active in the corps at Springburn in Glasgow. We children all came through the YP sections and then into the senior sections too. My father was songs leader for many years until his death in 1968. As children, we had a happy family life and we enjoyed growing up together. My two sisters were completely different in personality. Iris was always sensible, mature, and well-behaved, whereas Sylvia was always mischievous, getting into trouble, with me usually following her in that direction. Iris was the peacemaker and helped Sylvia and I get out of trouble with our parents. However, as they got older, my sisters changed their persona and their personality completely. Sylvia became mature and responsible, and Iris became less so. For example, in our family there is a mythical character called Thomas Riley, and Iris and I used to talk about Thomas Riley all the time to Beverly. And Beverly didn't know who Thomas Riley was, but everywhere Thomas went, postcards were sent to me asking how I was and how was Beverly, my wife. But Beverly never knew anything about Thomas. In fact, she didn't even know until fairly recently that Thomas didn't exist. It was one of the silly things that as a family we perpetuated. So there was a sense of humour in Iris that not everyone often saw, but that was pretty apparent for us. So that's one thing of Iris's character. But in 1968, my father died, and our lives took a different direction. And as a family, we all emigrated to Santa Monica, California in 1970. However, I returned to Scotland after 3 months in California to attend the University of Glasgow. So that began a period of separation for me from my mother and sisters. At that time, Iris began working at the General Telephone Company in Santa Monica, and she remained with that company until she retired, and she rose to become a very senior PA to a senior executive in that company. She was an active soldier and songster at Hollywood Tabernacle and subsequently Pasadena Corps, and she enjoyed singing in the songsters there. She was a very good singer and often hid her talents more often than not, because she didn't want to take the limelight, but she had a lovely voice and she should have done more with it, in my opinion. Iris was a very proud Scot, and it's true that you can take the girl out of Scotland, but you can't take Scotland out of the girl. If you're ever in her home, you would see evidence of that in her Scottish and British things around the house. Whenever we'd come across to see her, we would bring supplies of tea bags, chocolate biscuits, bacon, British sweets, candies, and anything from Marks and Spencer or Harrods. I wonder sometimes how we ever got through the US customs and border control, because we were smuggling lots of contraband. Even though we were separated by the Atlantic Ocean for many years, Iris and I were always very close. And I can honestly say that we never ever fell out, which is quite remarkable for me, although I'm quite tempestuous, but Iris and I always saw the good things in each other, and we never ever fell out. So throughout our lives, we would confide in each other when things were not so good, and also share in the times when there were joyous and happy occasions to celebrate and commemorate. Iris never had any children of her own, but she had 2 nieces and 2 nephews, and a great niece and a goddaughter whom she adored. And it's nice that Amelia has come with us as a family to celebrate Iris's life here today. Eric, her nephew, had planned to be here, but due to unforeseen circumstances at the very last minute, he had to cancel his trip. So we feel sorry that Eric is not here, but he's with us in spirit, I'm sure. Family meant everything to Iris, and she never forgot a birthday or a Christmas card to us all. She was very generous and always grateful for the gifts given to her, especially all the British food luxuries that she missed so much. As a family, we have some very fond memories of our times with Iris when we have come over to the US to visit her. One of the highlights was our customary visit to Disney, and on the last occasion we went there, Iris was not too good at walking. So we suggested that she got a wheelchair. Now that almost caused World War III. She said, I'm not ill, I'm not going to go in a wheelchair, I'm not old, I can walk. And it really was quite a traumatic experience, and I almost needed a wheelchair to recover. But she did relent, and we got her a wheelchair. And initially we had one that you pushed, and that was giving me a heart attack. So we got an electric one, and she was running around there like... I was going to say Stirling Moss, that's showing my age, but like Jensen Button or something. But she was really bombing around that Disneyland. But they had benefits for us all, because she got to the top of the line and we followed suit and got on the rides quicker. So it was a win-win for everyone. So she was happy with that eventually. Whenever we came to the US, we always felt obliged to stimulate the US economy. And our shopping expeditions were something to be seen and remembered. And Iris always was fascinated what we did when we came here. We used to go into the malls. Bev would go that way, I would go this way, and then we'd meet at the end, laden with parcels and goodies and all sorts of stuff. And Iris was left with Amelia, and sometimes pushing the pram or walking around with her when what age was. So that was an experience Iris always loved. But for me, there is one particular memory that sticks out in my mind, and that's when I came in 2000 to the Millennium Congress in Atlanta with Hendon Band, and we took part in the Great March of Witness, which was in sweltering heat. It was one of the hottest days ever. And there was Iris running backwards in front of the march with a camera, snapping away at me, because playing trombone, I was in the front of the march, and there was Iris running backwards. I've never seen her walk or run so fast in all my life, but she must have taken hundreds of pictures that day, and it was a sight I've never forgotten. Over the years, Iris had some very serious illnesses and managed to survive them all up until this year. I used to call her the creaking gate. There's an English expression that says that creaking gates last longest, and that's how I considered Iris to be, that she would just keep on going, and keep on going. But alas, that never quite happened. Even though she was very ill from late last year until June this year, I always expected her to survive and be here. When we came at Christmas to see her, we were amazed how she perked up and got better, but only to regress around the springtime of this year. I find it hard to accept that she's not with us still, and we miss her Sunday evening telephone calls, giving us an update on all her news, and we giving her our news to her. These calls could last for an hour or two, and over the years, these often took the form of mini concerts. as Amelia had to perform her latest cornet, piano, or elocution item for her auntie, with Iris usually ending up in tears. Not because they were bad performances, but just because it was Amelia doing what she was doing. She was very fond of Amelia and all her other nieces and nephews. For me, I have no one now to share the Boyd family jokes that only she and I understood. We could laugh at the most ridiculous things that no one else could understand. We could talk in broad Glaswegian and reminisce about the past and fun times throughout her life and my life. So from 5 Boyds, there was just Iris and I for the last 19 years, and now I'm on my own as the surviving Boyd member. These are the memories that Beverly, Amelia and I cherish. She will always be missed and never forgotten. Beverly and Iris developed a really close relationship over the years and became really good friends as well as sisters-in-law. Iris's brother's wife had to meet certain criteria, and I'm glad to say that Beverly passed the test with flying colours. So it was quite a test. Her death, even though it became expected latterly, was still a shock, and her parting from this earth so soon after her death is something I find hard to come to terms with, especially as I did not have the opportunity to see her right at the very end of her life. However, we must all celebrate Iris's life for the good times and good things she did throughout her life, and we celebrate that with great pride and love today. I commend Iris to you all, and may God grant her peace in the better world.